Welcome to Fashion Reverie Talks. I'm Kristopher Fraser, filling in for the beautiful Miss Cicely Daniels.
And I'm Tiana Ibrahimovic.
Fashion Reverie takes you from the front lines of fashion to the front rows.
All of Fashion Reverie Talk segments are based on published content found on fashionreverie.com.
So remember, if you want more information on the segments, go to fashionreverie.com. And if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button on this episode of YouTube.
In this episode, we are happy to have fashion designer Wangda, and we chat with Fashion Reverie Associate Editor Kristopher Fraser about his timely article, How Trump's Tariffs Could Affect Fashion. But let's start with fashion news. All of our news segments are based on the fashion news alerts found on fashionreverie.com.
All right, I'm going to kick off our fashion news. So first off, in a move that sent the whole fashion world spinning, Donatella Versace is stepping away from the creative director role at the namesake Versace brand, which her brother founded, and she's held that role of creative director since about 1997 or maybe 98, the late 90s, I believe, after his very unfortunate passing. Dario Vitale, who was the former senior designer at Miu Miu, will now be the new Versace creative director, while Donatella will be stepping into the role of chief brand officer. So she will still be at Versace in a C-suite position, but she will no longer be the chief designer.
That's very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing yet another reinvention of the brand. Now, speaking of reinventing oneself, plus-size supermodel Ashley Graham has a new job. She will make her Broadway debut in Chicago as Roxy Hart. So from April 15th to May 25th, Graham will demonstrate to Broadway audiences that she's so much more than just a pretty model. Her acting, singing, and dancing skills will prove that she's a triple threat. So I think a lot of people would be excited to see her in this role, following footsteps of some great entertainers like Pamela Anderson, Erica Jane, Brooke Shields, Lisa Rinna, Ashley Simpson, and many, many others. So never leaving fashion far behind. She also returned to the runway recently in Victoria's Secret show, and she's also the face of Michelle Watch's Legacy Redefined campaign. So she's one busy girl.
Speaking of people wearing changing hats, Gucci finally has a new creative director, and it did catch some people by surprise. Demna Gvasalia, the creative director of Balenciaga, will now be the creative director at Gucci. So he'll be stepping away from his role at Balenciaga, which they're both actually owned by the same parent company, Kering. Now, some people weren't too happy about this news, and upon the announcement of Gvasalia going over to Gucci, Kering shares actually fell 12%.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting because Balenciaga is one of the two most profitable brands in Kering's portfolio, but I guess people are worried about how his Balenciaga aesthetic will translate to Gucci and if that will still resonate with customers.
Of course, totally two different styles. So we shall see what happens. Well, that would be all for our fashion news alerts.
As we're fresh off of Fashion Month, we got to see a whole bevy of emerging designers at Fashion Reverie this season, and one of them was Wangda Chen, who showed at Nori House back in February. And Wangda is joining us here today. Thank you very much for joining us, Wangda. We're happy to have you.
Thank you for inviting me here.
I just want to start off by first asking you, when did you start your fashion line? You're a fairly new designer.
Yeah, we launched the brand, the label about a year ago.
Oh, wow, only a year ago.
Yeah, we spent not the year before that, to sort of set up the base, the foundation, because it's, I wanted the customer to perceive the brand as a high end, so it really takes time for me to look into the design aesthetic language, the fabric vendor and all that to have to make sure which direction, or you want to do tailoring, or you want to do more sporty look, want to do more contemporary. So it's about a year, launched a year, and then we start like a year, 2 years totally. But we just launched last year, like you said.
Were you fresh out of design school when you started building the line?
Well, no, I didn't go to any design school. It's sort of my passion.
Okay.
Yes, yes. It's inner fire, I would say.
Hmm.
Everybody has a purpose come this world, and that's my purpose.
So what was your inspiration behind the brand?
Well, there's so I think it's the balance or the fusion of both Eastern and Western culture because of my background.
Hmm.
For the collection of garment, the design aesthetic is from, I'm very, very much affected by the ideas of reconstruction.
Hmm.
If you think about Tom Brown, people call it a shrunk silhouette of tailoring. I think it's phenomenal.
Hmm.
It's a new stand, a new perception of, oh, maybe it would be very cool and interesting to wear a tailor suit like that. If you think about Rick Owens, we
Hmm.
want to reshape the human silhouette.
Hmm.
So I think I'm really inspired by the idea of being innovative, being bold about how you want to shape the human silhouette. I
Hmm.
think it's inspiring. But for the brand philosophy, my message, I think it's a love for life.
Hmm.
I think that we come into this life, living itself, it's very beautiful. It's enough. So I express that through the clean minimalistic design of my clothes because it's already enough. It's already beautiful. A
Hmm.
clothes with just simple design, it's good enough. So if that answers your question, it's from my personal philosophy of how I think about this world and the design aesthetics from more of the from Rick Owens and Brown.
So you have mentioned that you do tend to lean toward more of a minimalist aesthetic, and quiet luxury became a much broader trend last year. How do you think that helped benefit your brand as people were looking for more quiet luxury and minimalist pieces?
I'm not sure. I mean, it might be good because I think it automatically attracts certain attentions
Hmm.
that wow, this guy's doing something that maybe majority of the customers, potential customers would want.
Hmm.
But I think that as for the society as a whole, minimum design, it might equals the meaning of less fabric, more sustainable. So I think it's more about the ideas that we can bring a positive impact to the fashion industry. And
Yes,
that,
like
yeah.
you also kind of had like just like a perfect timing moment there, which was really great.
Well, I think so because I believe in, clean design, minimalistic, the philosophy, like I said.
So how would you?
But, but it's everybody's choice. I
Mhm.
wouldn't go against if a runway with hand-sewed silk wool leaves or flowers on the wall. Some people want to do a little extra,
Mhm.
some something easy. It's people's choice. I think that's how it makes the world just fantastic and beautiful, if that makes sense.
So how would you describe the Wangda customer?
I mean, well, they are very, very intuitive. They're very self-aware. They care about the qualities of a garments, how instead of trend. A trend is cool. Trend is cool. But somebody really knows what they want. Somebody really cares about the idea of a fashion. Somebody really cares about things that can make themselves just be confident, look good. If that
Mhm.
makes sense. sometimes that's a lot into my head. If I answer this question, just let me know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a challenging market for younger designers and emerging brands right now, but what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone looking to start a brand right now?
Be true to themselves,
Hmm.
stay consistent, and be adaptable to the industry because you want to sell at the end.
Yeah.
It's still a business, I think. But stay true, stay consistent to yourself would give you this, it might give you this, the DNA of your brand, give you this advantage that only belongs to yourself.
Hmm.
And be patient because, with social media these days, they would think it's one night thing, boom, 10 million followers, and then you think it will be crazy. It might happen, but I think just take it slow and be faithful, be consistent.
Yeah, overnight success is never really overnight.
Yes, there, right, right.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Wangda. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I hope you have a beautiful morning.
Thank you, thank you. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend too.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, I would like to welcome Kristopher Fraser. This time he is getting interviewed about his latest article about the possibility of new tariffs. And the latest commotion in the political world. So, Kristopher, what do you think? What is President's motivation behind the trade tariffs, and what does he hope to accomplish?
Well, first of all, there are no winners in a trade war, but what the sitting president of the United States is currently hoping to accomplish with these tariffs is that more companies will start to move manufacturing domestically, and this will help the economy. Problem is, they are too many decades too late for this thought, and the last time we tried to enter a tariff war that was even remotely similar to this was right prior to the Great Depression in the 1920s, and that ended up triggering and furthering the Depression. And at this point, our economy is just far too globalized to expect companies to just pack up and start moving production domestically.
So there has been some pushback from Canada and China. And how would these pushbacks affect the US consumers?
Well, right now, what we're seeing is them retaliating by putting tariffs on U.S. goods, which even though it's quite early, what happens with tariffs like these is the costs get passed on to the consumers. So then the cost of things start going up. It's expected that if these tariffs last for a longer amount of time, that the average U.S. household could end up spending upwards or around $1,000 a month more on essentials. And right now, that's $1,000 a lot of people do not have.
Well, it's already incredibly expensive, and it has been for the last few years that everything has been going up. So, okay, so let's say the regular goods, the food, the electricity, etc. But what about the fashion industry? How would this affect fashion industry?
While most of the tariffs right now are directly affecting things like electronics and metals, what we could see happening with the fashion industry is first of all, because there's going to be less money for consumers to spend, that's going to have an effect. And then because the price of metals is going up, that will actually affect the cost of sewing machines. If like the materials that are used to make sewing machines, some of those could be going up. And then fabric costs could also potentially be going up. And whereas a lot of companies source fabrics from China where they could get certain materials like felt for like $15, $20 for 50 yards, whereas they'd be paying $80 for that here if the cost of those fabrics and sourcing from China now goes up, they're going to have to start passing those costs on to the consumer, which means certain materials could cost more. It's even expected that fast fashion brands that do a lot of production over there could have to pass on those costs to consumers if these import-export costs start going up.
Hmm. So now we know that the luxury goods are a whole different game.
Mhm.
However, would that still affect luxury goods? If so, how?
The concern the luxury goods market has right now is if people have less discretionary spending for things on clothes, this could actually be very beneficial to the counterfeit market because now people are going to be more enticed to buy counterfeit goods. And whereas counterfeit goods are still weirdly affected by tariff costs because of they still need materials to make their counterfeits because the pricing they're setting is arbitrary and not like a set thing where it's like, a buy or a line sheet, like building in profit and production costs for certain, like to hit like X target goals because the counterfeit market does not have that. An increase of tariffs could be very beneficial to them as more people who may want that designer aesthetic, but now are, I don't know, out an extra $1,000 a month that they may have been saving towards that designer bag. They don't have that anymore because now they got to go spend it on food and other things.
Hmm.
Suddenly, buying counterfeit goods gets a lot more enticing.
Interesting. Even though I would assume that those that have always been buying luxury goods would not have a problem with a little bit of a difference. So maybe the market would go back to what it was maybe a decade ago or so. But if clothing goes costs up, what are some viable options for consumers?
A lot consumers now might start shifting more toward things that they know will last longer because they don't have the budget to be, buying clothes like every month or every other month or however often they used to be buying clothes. So people might be seeking more like investment pieces and more quality materials that they know they can get longer wear out of because they can't just be buying every as frequently as they used to now that they have to like budget an extra $1,000 a month for essentials now.
Mm-hmm.
So, sustainability advocates, even though they're not necessarily pro this whole trade war, they do see that this could be one of the benefits in terms of pushing fashion towards being more sustainable if people are not trending as much more toward buying so much fast fashion and are now investing in more quality, longer lasting pieces that, will have a longer shelf life and will in some way save people money in the long run, even though it might initially be more expensive if it's something you can keep longer, that's more beneficial to both the consumer trying to save some money and that wants something that's going to last a while longer, and having less fashion in circulation with people not buying as much. And
Right?
also
It might
shopping.
improve quality too, right?
Pardon?
Might improve quality of the goods.
Oh yeah, because if brands are gonna have to start thinking about like, if they're sourcing consumers are buying less, let's make a product that will actually last longer.
That would be good. Thank you for Kristopher for such a great insight. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, Tiana. We would also like to thank Wangda for appearing on this episode of Fashion Reverie Talks.